Hello, welcome to another episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast. Thank you for all of the feedback you've given us, or given me particularly, over the past few months of doing this podcast. Based on the feedback we've had from you, the most popular episodes, it seems, have been the guest specials and episodes which focus on productivity and on mental health. So today I'm bringing you all three of those in one. More on that in just a moment. First of all, I should let you know, in case you don't know by now, that this podcast is gratefully sponsored by Ingram Spark, the award-winning indie publishing platform that offers authors like you a way to get your paperbacks and hardbacks into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. You can let Ingram Spark take care of the details so you can focus on what you do best, writing. So get started today at ingramspark.com. Now that we've got the those bits and bobs out of the way, I'll introduce you to today's guest, who is Natalie Roberts. She's over here. Natalie is a writer who specializes in mental health and well-being. She's also the author of Write Through Depression and Journal Through Depression, both of which are designed to help people through episodes of poor mental health using the power of writing. And if you're one of our patrons, you'll not only be able to hear Natalie, but see her as well. Hello, Natalie. Welcome to the podcast. Oh, hang on. I'll unmute you first. That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? Let's try again. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
I was saying to you before this, I don't do any editing, and now that's become apparent. Natalie, your background isn't in mental health work in a clinical sense, but you've actually got a much more personal and relatable story here, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I personally have depression, so I don't have a clinical background in it, but I do have a day job, which is as a carer, and I have worked in mental health units, but I'm not qualified in mental health.
Well, you say that, but I think the people who are qualified the most are probably the people who have been through it. That was
Yeah, mine's specifically depression. I can't talk on any other mental health issue, and that's why the books are titled like Through Depression rather than specific or generalized mental health. But mine is from personal experience.
And this is something that's quite common, I think, with writers and with creative people living with depression and other related mental health conditions. This is something I've kind of thought about a lot over the years, and I've noticed a very high prevalence and very high link. Why do you think that is? I mean, my own theory is that it's because of the work we do. We think too much. We think too deeply, and we overanalyze things.
We do, we overthink. We not that people don't use their brain, but we are constantly having to think about what's the right thing to say and how should I word this, and you are just constantly thinking all the time, and it's hard to switch off because with your normal day job, out of the house or out of wherever you work, if it's not to do with writing, most of the time you can come home, switch off. But when you're a writer, it's just always whirling round in your brain. It doesn't switch off. Even when I dream about it, it gets that bad. But no, there have. I haven't read any, but I know there's been studies about creative people and the link with depression and other mental health issues. And I think maybe that we go to creativity to help us. It's a distraction. It's something else to think about. But creativity and mental health does have a link.
I think it's definitely a two-way street, isn't it? Like you say, the writing can help as an outlet, and at the same time, the whole calling of being a writer does make you more susceptible to these things in the first place. So it's quite an extraordinary thing, actually, that you can use that almost not just as the cause, but also the cure. It's quite a strange relationship there. And your books, so you got Write Through Depression and Journal Through Depression. They go into a lot more detail into how it can help people through these periods. But I noticed when I was reading the book, the first chapter opens with a quote from Winston Churchill, which is, "If you are going through hell, keep going," which really struck me, because I think depression and the process of writing are almost identical in that regard. That can refer to writing as much as it can refer to depression itself. I mean, could it be that one of the reasons why writing helps to combat depression be that the whole process of pushing through and writing the imbalances in a story, going into the woods and back out again, and all those things, is that actually a pretty accurate allegory for combating depression as well?
Yeah, it's about mindset, isn't it? And obviously, when you've got depression or other mental health issues, it's all about the mind and not having control of it. But with writing, that's the part of it that you do have control of. So you're controlling how the story is going, and that there's a bit in Right Through Depression about changing your story. If it's not going the way you want it to go, then you can try and change it, although you might feel like you're not in control of it. In a way you are. It's difficult with mental health, because it's hard to say to somebody you have control of it, because you don't always have the control of it, but you have control of parts of it, and things that you can do to help you. So writing or therapy, those are the things you can choose to use to try and help you control it. But you have to come at it from so many different angles, because not everything is going to work. Everybody's different. Writing's not going to be for everybody. The type of writing in the book and the exercises, just because you're a writer doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. It's about trial, error, see what works for you, and pushing through to find what's going to help you.
Those words, "you can choose your story," works for both fact and fiction, doesn't it? It's very, very powerful words. Okay. There's a chapter as well in the book that resonated with me, which is it's called "Social Media Isn't Your Friend." I mean, it's something that I've been aware of for a long time, obviously on a factual level, that social media is not good for people, and heard all of the horror stories and what have you, and known lots of friends who have come off and said they feel much better for it. But I'm actually, that's kind of on a conscious level, I guess, but I'm actually a relatively recent convert to the realization that social media is actually poisonous for me. When I have a few days off of Facebook or social media in general, I feel a lot calmer. I can think a lot more clearly. And as a result, I've cut my social media usage right back, and I barely use it, to be honest, anymore. And I've had only positive results from that. It's been pretty extraordinary. Do you think that more of us suffer through this incessant obsession and usage of social media than we actually realize? Do you think we think we're getting something positive from it? We've always got that urge to tap on Facebook as soon as we wake up and see what people have been saying. But I think personally, as soon as you realize that you don't actually care what people are saying, it becomes a lot more powerful.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it is a way to connect with people, because I wouldn't have connected with you if it wasn't for Facebook.
True.
I absolutely hate Facebook. I don't have a personal Facebook page. I have my writing Facebook page, but Facebook was terrible for my mental health, and I came off my personal page a few years ago, because you're comparing yourself to people you actually know on Facebook, and I think that's more damaging, because they're people you know. When you're looking at other people, say on Instagram, you don't know them. You might think, that's great, I'd love to be like them, but you don't actually know them. But when you're seeing people you do know and you think that they're doing better than you, then that's really bad. Well, it was bad for me anyway. And I would just end up, I would be moaning on Facebook all the time. I was putting a status on there, just complaining all the time. And it was so easy to complain. And then people comment, don't they? And they want to know what's wrong with you. And it just makes you spiral, I think. I like Instagram because it's basic. I can just scroll really quickly through. And I try and keep it to the people that inspire me. So mostly it is writers that I follow, a couple of other personal development people, but I don't follow people that I know personally on Instagram. And it is bad for you. And with coronavirus and having to isolate, a lot more people become reliant on social media now, because that's the only interaction some people are getting, because well, up until recently we weren't really allowed out. So you and still on there, you're not getting a true picture of what somebody's life is, because people are only putting on there what they want you to see, not what it actually is. So you're just getting, I said loads of times before, you're getting the highlight reel of people's lives, but it's true, you are only getting, you don't get many people going on there saying like the bad things that are happening and the truth of what's going on in their life, because they don't want to share things like that.
No, of course not. No, it is heavily filtered, and I think that's why it like you say, it's not a true reflection of real life, and therefore comparing yourself to something that really doesn't exist and isn't a true reflection of reality is always going to make you feel worse, because, as you say, people put the best bits up there. We all have bad things in our lives, but if you're not seeing bad stuff from other people, you're only seeing their good stuff and seeing your bad things, then that comparisonitis is going to take over, and that is a big thing, certainly for writers. I've noticed in certain circles, you do get this kind of comparisonitis, don't you?
It's difficult for us, isn't it? Because we need social media for marketing and, to get our work out there. So we need to be on it up to a certain point. But I think sometimes if you're sitting there all day scrolling through it, then you should be realizing that that's not really productive for you, and you could be using your time to write rather than scrolling through the Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, this is why I don't tend to use my personal profile, really. It's there, but it's there purely because otherwise I can't have my author page. I can't run the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group, things like that. So I try and heavily limit my usage. I'll put it that way. Now the books, Write Through Depression, Journal Through Depression, they're available ebook and paperback, I think. Is there audio at the moment?
No audio at the minute.
Okay, excellent. And what else can people find in those books that we haven't covered, which you think might just tempt them? And I've got to say, if my word and my recommendation is worth anything, I would highly recommend both books. But in case people don't want to listen to me and they'd rather listen to you, what else can they find in there which might persuade them?
They're workbooks. Well, the paperback ones are workbooks for you to write in. There's questions and prompts to get you thinking about things. I tell my story because I don't expect you to jump straight into your story about where you think your depression came from. I talk about where I think mine came from, and then ask you questions whether you think that could be similar to why I'm depressed. So your childhood, teens, up to what's going on in your adult life. There's the bit about social media and trying to get you to think if you're using it too much, what you can get rid of, and to try and make you realize it is that a cause of your depression, maybe. The difference between the books is Journal Through Depression is just specifically about different types of journaling that you can do to help you. Write Through Depression, it's all sorts. So I talk about creative writing, poetry, letter writing. It covers a little bit about journaling, but that's why I wrote the second book, because I didn't feel like I'd gone into it enough. So I did a full book on the different types of journaling. And then the most important bit is, I think, in Write Through Depression is the professional help bit. So you've done all the self-help that you can do, but sometimes you've got to realize that you can't do it by yourself, and that you are going to need to ask for help at some point. And it just gives you the different type of options that you can go to for help, because not everybody is good at talking. I don't like talking to other people about it. That's why I turn to writing. But writing by itself doesn't help me alone. I do have to have other things to help me too. So that's writing, talking to a professional, maybe medication, which I have had in the past. You have to come at it from all angles. You know, it's not.
There's never one right answer, is there?
No, there isn't. No, and that's what's the insidious thing about it, isn't it? You think that I'll try this. This is going to work, and when it doesn't work, you feel like you're failing or that you're beyond help. But that's because you've got to try more than one thing at a time.
Nature of the beast, unfortunately, isn't it? Well, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. As I say, highly recommend those books, Right Through Depression and Journal Through Depression. If people want to connect with you, I know we've just literally spent the last 5-10 minutes talking about how poisonous social media is, but where can people find you on social media?
Well, I am on Facebook, even though I hate it. Facebook and Instagram is just Natalie Roberts Writer. I don't use Twitter very much, so...
I don't blame you. Talk about poisonous social media. Jesus. Well, thank you very much for joining us, as I said. For those of you who are already patrons of the Indie Author Mindset, thank you very much. You've also been watching the episode, and much earlier as well than everybody else getting it on general release. If you're not already a patron, you can check out all the wonderful benefits you get at patreon.com/Indie Author Mindset. Natalie, thank you very much, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
This episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast was presented by me, Adam Croft. The Indie Author Mindset podcast is sponsored by Ingram Spark, helping you get your book into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Get started today at ingramspark.com. The theme music for this podcast is by the Caesareans. Don't forget you can claim 50% off any Indie Author Mindset course by entering the promo code podcast at the checkout. Links are in the show notes. For more great tips and guidance, join the Indie Author Mindset group on Facebook.